football, and which shows how hard it is really for them to get there. So I think part of the deal of Cheltenham getting into League One, you're going to have some difficult times, but to stay up, 2 highest finishes in the club's history of 15th and 16th.
Yeah,
it all went a little bit wrong at the start of last season, but to take it to the last game of the season and lose out, agonisingly close to staying up again, I think they can be quite proud of what they've done over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think, at the start of last season, Cheltenham failed to score a goal in the first 11 matches. That is harsh, isn't it?
That was ridiculous, really, when you think about it. You expect a penalty, a deflection, a set piece, some sort of goal from a corner, but to not score for 11 league games. They also didn't score in the first League Cup game, and in the first trophy game, it was an own goal. So you can add those games in as well if you really want to make it sound as bad as possible. But it was an EFL record from the start of the season. So they looked down and out, really, by the end of September. Everyone had written Cheltenham off, and obviously they did end up going down. But you have to give Darrell Clarke a bit of credit. When he took over, he made them competitive again. And in the end, as I said, they took it right to the wire. But they did deserve to go down over the course of the season, I would say.
Yeah, I think they say that at the end of the season, the table doesn't lie, does it? Darrell Clarke, obviously we knew him at Walsall. He brought one player in for you, Liam Kinsella. What did you reckon to him?
Yeah, he made a positive impact. He's also obviously played under Michael Flynn as well. He came in, made a positive impact. One of the Darrell Clarke trusted him and knew what he was all about. Good character as well. I enjoyed chatting to him when he first signed, and he played mostly centre mid, but he played a little bit right wing back as well. And I think Clarke, if you look at Clarke's record, that would have been enough if he'd managed to maintain that over the start full season. If he'd been there at the start, Cheltenham would have stayed up. So people like Kinsella, he brought in Tom Pett, he brought in Matty Taylor in January from Forest Green. He scored a few goals. It was, he did improve the team, and he gave them hope. He gave all the fans hope. And even though it was a very short reign from Darrell, really, and he's got his move to Barnsley now, he did as well as anyone could have expected with the situation he walked into and the resources he had. And it's always difficult for Cheltenham in League One, let alone when you haven't scored for 11 games. So you can't really knock what he did, but it was agonising on that last game at Stevenage. For about 20 minutes, Cheltenham were 1 goal away from being out of the relegation zone and ended up losing the game and going down. But they are a League Two team by every measure, really.
Yeah, I think when you've had a run of games when you haven't scored, it really sort of becomes an issue inside the squad, doesn't it? So fair play to Darrell Clarke for sort of turning that round, really. Yeah. Looking forward to next season with Michael Flynn in charge. Obviously, he's been at Walsall as well. It's a strange connection, really. Maybe you'll have Matt Sadler next. I don't know if he sort of doesn't do the job for us here. Mike Flynn, are you positive about that?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because Cheltenham have had 2 managers that have gone on to Walsall, and Michael Duff and obviously Darrell Clarke, and now 2 ex-Walsall managers have come to Cheltenham. So it's a bit of a merry-go-round. But when the appointment was made, I thought it made a lot of sense because he's relatively local, living in the Newport area. Yeah. He was on Cheltenham's doorstep. He's got, I think, a decent record in League Two. It didn't go as well as he would have wanted at Swindon, but I think there are definitely mitigating circumstances in terms of what was going on off the pitch at Swindon from what, everything that I've spoken to people and read.
Absolutely,
so I think he's got 350 games under his belt, did a brilliant job at Newport. I think there's a lot of similarities between Cheltenham and Newport in terms of the size of the club and the sort of budget he's going to be working with. And he obviously got Newport to 2 playoff finals, numerous high-profile FA Cup games.
Yeah,
broke all the records in all the competitions, really.
It seemed at Newport that he was the local lad who sort of made the team good. When he came to Walsall, I think it was hard for him not being at home. I think it's one of those changes, isn't it? There was talk of him at the village where he'd be sort of drinking heavily and that sort of thing, and I think that probably affected him a little bit. Things weren't particularly good for Walsall under Darrell Clarke and Mike Flynn, really. So nothing bad against the managers. I think they definitely got some organisation about them. And as you say, Darrell Clarke did a good job for you, and I think Mike Flynn will do as well. As far as League Two, when Walsall came down to League Two, we thought, we'll sort this out. We're back up. It's a lot tougher than we thought. What players have you brought in that you think will help make it strong for you?
Well, it's been almost a total rebuild, really. So there's been 13 signings so far. I could go through all of them, and they've all got something interesting to talk about. So he's given a few players from non-league football a chance, but there are some proven players in there, like Ryan Bowman would probably be up there in terms of one of the more high-profile signings of the summer from Shrewsbury. Scott Bennett, who we had at Newport, captain team, it probably will be the club captain. He's a natural leader, can play centre-back, centre-mid. So he's been there and done it, and Flynn will know what he's all about. So I think that's quite a good signing. Luke Young from Wrexham, another one of the more experienced signings. Harry Pell from Wimbledon, who's been at Cheltenham before and had a National League title under his belt at Cheltenham before, so he's popular with fans. He's come back. And then there's an interesting one, Liam Dawson from Bedford Town. He stepped up from the Southern League Division 1 level last season. He helps Bedford Town get promoted to the Prem. I think he got 26 goals at that level last season. He's looked really good in pre-season. Yeah. So it could be,
Bedford, you say, yeah.
Bedford, yeah. So Matty Taylor, Dawson, Ryan Bowman up front. I'm sure there'll be at least one, possibly two more strikers to come in. Aidan Keane has just left to go back to Ireland, so I think there'll be a replacement for him coming in. But it's Kintella's one of the few players that remain from last season. There's probably only 4 or 5 that were at the club last season still in the squad, and he's been a lot of changes and the staff changes as well. Totally new backroom staff, really.
So, what are your expectations for next season?
Well, you said Walsall sort of went down and found it hard. I think Cheltenham will be expecting it to be hard because Cheltenham never really been a big club in League Two, and they'll want to give it a go. But I think if you look at the previous 2 relegations Cheltenham have had from League One, they finished 14th the first time they came down, stabilised for a couple of years, and then went back up again. And when they came down the previous time, they really struggled and almost went down again. And it does happen, doesn't it? Some teams come down, as Forest Green did last season, and find it particularly difficult, drop again. So I think I'm expecting a sort of stabilisation season with a new manager, new backroom team, new team. Feels like a totally fresh start, and I think Cheltenham are in the division they belong to be in. But I think as long as they're not at risk of dropping down to non-league football again, that's the main thing this season, is just trying to get back on an even keel. After it does take its toll, Cheltenham being in League One. They're up against it. They're playing against the big boys, but also even the smaller clubs in the division have probably got bigger spending power than Cheltenham. So I think just to mid-table finish would suit me this season. I think Michael Flynn would see that as a solid start, and then he'll be trying to build something, obviously, like he did at Newport over the next few years. Yeah.
The ground's quite small as well in League One. I bet you're selling out quite often. The away following, I guess.
The away following is what will be the most different this season, really, because it's a 7,000 or just over capacity stadium. Cheltenham fans rarely sell out the whole thing, although the seating's sold out regularly. There's nearly always terrace tickets available. But yeah, the size of the away followings, obviously in League Two, isn't going to be quite as much, so they'll notice a difference there. But the attendances were good. I think they had their second highest ever average crowd last season. Highest ever was 02-03 when they first got into League One, the first time ever. When I think Walsall would have been possibly in the Championship at that point. Were they in 02-03?
02-03, yeah. Well, it was the 2003 season. The 3-4 season we were in the Championship.
Right. So that was obviously 20 years ago now. So the crowds have been pretty good. So they'll be hoping for the home fans will stay loyal. I think season ticket sales have been pretty good. So, but yeah, there'll be smaller clubs anyway, and not as many local games in League Two for Cheltenham either. A lot more travelling, I think.
Yeah, I think with all the clubs that are coming up from the National League, they all seem to be coming up with decent budgets and trying to go straight through the league. Obviously, Stockport took a couple of years to get through. Wrexham straight through. Notts County came unstuck last season, but they're surely going to be strong this season. Chesterfield have come up. So it's like a stop off venue for some of them, which is frustrating from Warsaw's perspective. Walsall, struggling for strikers. We've only got 2 strikers at the club, and neither of them are expected to sort of score many. So hopefully we don't get into the same trouble as you guys and struggling to score.
Yeah.
So tough one.
Like you said earlier, Simon, I think when Cheltenham started the season, they looked all right. They just didn't score for a few games, and then every game that went past, they started to look more and more like a really bad team because the confidence drained away, and suddenly they were going out looking absolutely, in a couple of games, clueless. And obviously the manager Wade Elliott had to go, but they weren't actually as bad as they seemed. But it is a confidence thing, isn't it? When you go, say, 5 or 6 games without a goal, it starts playing on your mind, and then they needed a change. But it was a freak thing really to go that long without a goal.
Well, it was difficult. Its morale is a big part of football, and when Mike Flynn was at Walsall, we went through a bad run, and he admitted, he said the confidence in the team went, and I couldn't get it back, and that's how he ended up going.
Yeah, so very difficult.
It's a difficult one for any manager, I think. Walsall, Matt Sadler was his first year as a manager last season. Made some weird decisions. It's a bit nervous to make a decision, really. The better managers are generally the confident and the risk takers, aren't they?
Decisive.
Throw a couple of guys on, and I think Mike Flynn's one of them. If it's not working, he'll sort of change it. Where Matt Sadler, maybe he's learning. I hope he is, and we can sort of be competing at the top end of the division. But as I say, with just 2 strikers at the minute, we've got Josh Gordon, came to us on loan last season. He scored a few for Barrow and got his move to Burton in League One. Then went 18 games without a goal, which is not great for a striker. Came to us on loan, played 21 games, and only got 1 goal, 1 assist. So as much as he's a very energetic player and puts himself about a lot, he's not going to be scoring 10, 12, 15 goals for us, I wouldn't have thought. He's a bit shot shy most of the time. And he played in our friendly on Tuesday night, and the ball came to him on the penalty spot, a deflection off the keeper, and he flashed it wide. So he's really struggling. Jamil Matt, everybody's heard about Jamil Matt.
Yeah.
But he's 34 now, I think. So he's starting to slow down a little bit. He will score, but I still don't think he's going to score a hatful for us next season. So we're eagerly updating Twitter, waiting for news of extra strikers. Some of the teams in the division have got like 5, 6 strikers, and like we've got 2.
You don't want to go into a season with just 2, do you?
No. Well, of course, we know with the 5 subs you can have now, quite often teams will sort of change their front 2 for the last 20 minutes. Well, Walsall have got nobody to change, really. And that's a concern. So we've seen some of the predicted tables, and they've got Walsall around about 16th. If we can't get the right kind of strikers in, I think we're going to be struggling lower than that. So I am concerned. But equally, I'm confident that we will have decent strikers appearing. And if we get the right kind of guys in, we've got every reason of being in the top 7.
How did Owen Evans do? How would you say? How would you summarise Owen Evans' time at Walsall? Because he's obviously come to Cheltenham now.
Owen Evans, first season for Walsall, he was very good, often man of the match, really, really good keeper. Last season, he lost confidence and just seemed to get worse and worse. I think the change is probably what he needs, and going back to Cheltenham is probably, let's say never go back, but in football, it's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, he worked with Mike Flynn before, and that's when he had a good season. So, he needed to move on, really. The rumour was that he was looking for a move in January, and he'd been out the team. He played a game, and it was sort of shop window to effectively try to get a move in January, I think.
Right.
But it didn't go well for him at all. He tried to dribble out and lost it and conceded a goal, and then got sent off,
Right.
which was not good. Now, this is the strangest ever thing, but I need to sort of put a little bit of context. He had an injury, and Jackson Smith came in. He's a young keeper we'd got from Wolverhampton Wanderers. We'd had him on loan, and then we'd signed him on a 1-year contract. He came in full of confidence and had been for 5-6 games. Walsall had won, and he'd been outstanding. And then nobody could understand why he was dropped, and he put Owen Evans back in. I spoke to Jackson's dad, and he had no explanation. He said he's just been told he's not starting.
Strange.
So, and then that was the game where he made a mistake to concede a goal, and then got sent off. The Walsall fans, now this is terrible. They cheered when he got it sent off.
Right.
Which you never want to boo your own players and cheer sending off your own player. But I understand where the context came from, because they felt like he shouldn't have been playing to start with because of how well Jackson Smith had done. But yeah, it's not a great situation when that happens. But
no. Looks like he's going to be Cheltenham's number one anyway at the moment. They've got 2 decent keepers to choose from, with Joe Day coming in from Newport, but I think Evans is.
Joe Day, yeah, he's a good keeper as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's player goalkeeper coach now, so he'll battle out with Evans, but I think Evans will probably start as number one and see how it goes. So he did well on his loan spell at Cheltenham, did particularly well. Then he came back on a permanent, and it was a bit more mixed, but maybe he just needed a fresh start again.
Well, you got promoted with him as your number one, didn't you?
No, he played in the playoff semi-final defeat by Northampton, and then when Cheltenham went up, it was Josh Griffiths on loan from West Brom who was the number one.
Got you. I thought he'd got a promotion. Maybe he was still there.
He wasn't there. No. He came. He signed permanently when Cheltenham got back into League One. So he missed the year. He had half a season on loan, then he missed a year, then he came back for a year as permanent.
Yeah. Just before we finish, we talked before we went online that you've published some books to do with Cheltenham. As you may or may not know, I run another show, the Budding Author Podcast, and I talk to authors about their journey. So any would-be writers, that's the place to subscribe. And I assume you're all subscribed to Wolfsfan TV already. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what happened with the books.
Yeah, so first book I wrote when I was at uni, actually. Just started writing some articles for the club programme on former players. And then I was asked if I wanted to turn it into a book. So I had to write a few more to make it up to 50. So it was at the time what I thought, having done a bit of research and spoken to people that knew a lot about the history of the club, the 50 greatest players in Cheltenham Town's history. So that came out in 2006. If I was to do that again now, obviously there'd be a lot more recent players added in. So I might have to do a sequel. But so that came out in 2006, published by a local publisher in Gloucestershire called the History Press. They then asked me to do a sort of sequel on 50 greatest games. So it's very similar format. 50 greatest matches Cheltenham have had, so FA Trophy final, promotion games, big high-profile FA Cup games. The third one was an On This Day book. So that was sort of took a lot of research in to find something for every day of the year. Some days there was loads of stuff going on. Some days were a bit quieter, but that's
in the close season, obviously a bit challenging.
Yeah, so that's sort of scratching around looking for transfers and big friendly results and things like that. But yeah, so 365 came out in 2013. That's every day of the year, something that happened in the club's history. Again, probably needs a bit updating now because it's 11 years old. But then the fourth one was more of a picture-driven book with photos from the club photographer from the title-winning season of 2021 under Michael Duff when Cheltenham got up into League One. Because it was the COVID season, there were no fans there. So the club decided they wanted to produce a nice little keepsake for fans with great images of the season. So I was asked to put the words together for that. So just a few words on each game bit of a summary of the season. It was the season Cheltenham got to the FA Cup fourth round and played Man City as well. Went 1-0 up and led for quite a while. Put in a great performance against a strong Man City team. Ended up losing 3-1. But most importantly, they won the league to get back to League One, where they hadn't been since 2009. So that was really enjoyable. A bit of a strange season being there in the empty stadiums, but very lucky, but also felt a bit pointless at times having football without fans. But luckily, it wasn't long before fans came back. So fans basically came back and Cheltenham had gone up a league. So that was quite nice in a way. But it's we tried to make it a bit of a keepsake for that season. Some great memories. And so that's it. Yeah, 4 so far. I'm sort of working on the 5th at the moment, but it's very early stages and hoping to keep going because I really enjoy writing alongside the reporting. And Cheltenham, I'm sure like Walsall, although Walsall have been in League Two for a couple of years now, it's had a lot of ups and downs, haven't they, Walsall, over the last?
Yeah, well, the mantra of the channel, the joy and the pain, and I think all football fans are sort of familiar with that, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been brilliant, John. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Simon. Yeah.
Good luck for the season. And I'll come down to the Cheltenham match. I used to do some work in Cheltenham, so I came down when we played in the JPT or wherever it was. So it'd be good to come back down.
Yeah.
Nice one. Cheers, John.
Cheers, Simon. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All good.